Hello, everyone. Silvio Samuel, nicknamed Saviour, started out as a weightlifter in the mid-2000s, showing a very good level on the competitive scene. He became the first in the Ironman, was among the top at the Arnold Classic, and took part in the Olympia 3 times. And more than once he defeated such stars as Gustavo Badell, Darem Charles, Dennis James, and Marcus Rule. There was everything in his life: successes and failures, the attention of a huge army of fans of iron sports, and a high-profile criminal case that ended in a prison sentence. I want to tell you about Silvio's life and career in today's issue. Make yourself comfortable. It will be interesting. Silvio was born on March 8, 1975 in Brazil to an American of Nigerian descent and a Brazilian woman. In 1979, the whole family, his parents, Silvio himself, his brother, and 6 sisters moved to Nigeria. Ivan Ganev, a Bulgarian native who worked as a coach for the Nigerian national weightlifting team, brought Samuel to iron sports. Ganev noticed 14-year-old Silvio when he was chasing a ball on a football field. An experienced coach immediately recognized the dark-skinned kid's predisposition to strength training. He invited him into the hall and was not mistaken. After just 2 months of training, the novice entered his first weightlifting competition and won it. It was the Nigerian Junior Championships. Over the following years, Samuel set several records in Nigeria and Africa which have not yet been broken. One day, Silvio Samuel was taken as a reserve to South Africa. It turned out that the main member of the team suddenly fell ill, and Silvio had to compete in his place in the category up to 54 kilograms. He made a lot of noise, took the bronze medal in the fight against guys who were a few years older than him. Having achieved recognition, Samuel felt more and more uncomfortable every year in Nigeria, in which one regime was replaced by another. As a result, he ended up in Germany in 1993. Having quickly mastered and learned German, he went further to Spain. He spent the next 5 years in Madrid, competing for the Spanish national weightlifting team. At the same time, he studied, plus worked as a bouncer in a nightclub. Things were going great, and Samuel was preparing to compete at the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney, when suddenly trouble happened. He was diagnosed with appendicitis, followed by surgery and a complete ban on lifting weights. For the next 2 years, I worked with light weights, Samuel confessed. I couldn't do without iron at all because I love this business very much. In early 2001, the bodybuilders who trained with him in the same gym noticed a guy with an impressive build and began to persuade him to compete in bodybuilding competitions. Silvio refused for a long time. I was timid and shy, and I just couldn't imagine myself walking around on stage in my swimming trunks. Besides, my family wouldn't like such an activity. We are all very religious. However, under pressure from Alfonso Gomez, a Spanish bodybuilding official, he finally succumbed to persuasion and a few months later easily won his first tournament. It was a local competition in the town of Francisco de Tero. There I won my category and the absolute championship, Silvio recalled. Over the next 2 years, he won several prestigious titles in the NABA and WABA federations, and then turned his attention to the IFBB. I wanted to be on a par with guys like Gustavo Badell or Dexter Jackson, Silvio confessed. I had something to strive for. The title of absolute champion at the Joe Weider Cup in 2004 in Toulouse opened the way for Samuel to the world of IFBB pros. But Samuel decided to try his hand at a competition in the USA only in 2006. At the famous FIBO bodybuilding exhibition in Germany, I managed to talk to Dexter Jackson, Silvio recalled. I considered myself too small to compete with the pros, and I was seriously worried about that. Dexter looked at my performance at the exhibition and then said that I have a good build, that I can get even better, that the judges primarily evaluate the figure as such and not the size, that I should go to America. A little later, Chris Cormier repeated almost the same thing to me, for which I am still very grateful to him. When Silvio, already a very experienced athlete from NABA, arrived in the USA to seek his fortune, he was predicted to live a long and painful existence in an endless line of other bodybuilding pros. And the first start of the New York tournament did not promise much hope. Only 14th place. But Samuel didn't want to wait. Initially, I looked up to Sean Ray, he recalled, and when I found myself in America, I happened to meet him. He said, "You're a great athlete. You have great muscles. The trouble is, no one here knows where you came from. Most athletes from Europe come to America for the competition and then return home, disappearing from sight. If you want to take higher seats, start making trouble for the judges." At first, however, I shot well at a tournament in Spain. I decided that I would do better there. In Europe, I was already considered one of my own. It turned out to be a really good fourth place. It was only after that that I took up America in earnest. Samuel moved to the States, to be more precise, to Milos Sarcev, a famous former bodybuilder who is now famous as a coach guru who has educated a whole galaxy of top bodybuilders. It is his trick to gather promising foreign athletes in the walls of his California Coliseum and launch them into the orbit of big bodybuilding. Sarcev's students included monsters like Dennis James, Gustavo Badell, Mustafa Muhammad, and even Dennis Wolf. The philosophy was that athletes live in Sarcev's house, consume his food, supposedly work out in the gym for free, and again, they seem to have free access to all the subtleties of pre-competition training, which Milos knows perfectly. However, Milos should not be considered a good magician. The celebrities he trains give him good publicity. Well, advertising makes money. For example, an hour-long workout supervised by Milos will cost you about $300, and so Milos fell ill with Samuel. I must say that under the guidance of an experienced ex-Yugoslavian, Silvio began to make rapid progress. I put on almost a dozen kilos of muscles, managed to split my legs and make an even more mind-blowing relief. The main bet was on the Ironman Pro Tournament, which opened the spring 2007 season. Silvio, of course, did not win, but he took fourth place, which is very worthy. And most importantly, he managed to make a very strong impression on the experts, judges, and ordinary fans. After that, Samuel's business began to improve. Silvio received an invitation to speak at the Arnold Classic Super Tournament. A lot of sports nutrition companies, including the almighty Muscle Tech, became interested in him. In July, Samuel appeared on the cover of the famous Flex edition for the first time. Along the way, Silvio continued to make trouble for his eyes, having performed 8 times in a year, not counting the Olympia, and everywhere he managed to get into the final 6. Of course, there was no first place at the Olympia, but to become 7th in a competition of this rank on the first attempt is an event. There are almost 24 athletes left behind, each of whom is a star. In one fell swoop, they managed to get even with those who previously seemed unattainable. With Eddie Abu, Mark Dugdale, Tony Freeman, and even Gustav Bodel himself. And it cannot be said that the judges overestimated Samuel. With immaculate proportions and a tiny waist, he turned out to be one of the driest on stage. Then his fans started calling him the Skinless Man. At the seminar after Olympia, Silvio was in a great mood, laughing and joking a lot. "I would not like to organize the same competitive marathon next year. 9 tournaments is clearly too much. I think there won't be more than 4 of them. As it is, everything is just great. I want to say a special thank you to my coach, Charles Glass." Yes, right at that moment, he didn't say a word about Milos Sarcev. As it turned out, around that time, Sarcev and Silvio broke up, and not in a kind way. There were some unpaid bills, unpaid debts. In other words, it all came down to money. Silvio's success on the competitive stage has skyrocketed. It got to the point where they started calling him the second Sergio Oliva. To me, this is clearly overkill. As soon as someone gets into a pose with their arms raised to the sky, they immediately become a second Oliva. Yes, Samuel and Sergio have something in common. For example, Spanish or a slim waist combined with powerful hips. Well, Samuel is too small with his 100 kilograms on the background of the giant Sergio. I will tactfully keep silent about charisma, popular love of fans, and other little things, although of course the Nigerian also has his fans. At the age of 34, Samuel seemed to be quite successful and in demand. He lived where he liked. In the town of Fullerton in California, he got a pretty decent car and a new girlfriend. with whom he had the most serious plans. Almost every week he was invited to pose for guests here and there. Fortunately, Silvio did not know what the off-season was and was always in shape. In 3 years, he managed to be on the cover of Flex 3 times. And that's when the clouds began to gather over him. In the summer of 2009, the news spread that Samuel had stopped working with Charles Glass. He decided to skip the 2010 Arnold Classic tournament and focus on preparing for the Tampa Pro competition in order to qualify for the Olympics. But Silvio didn't perform at Tampa either, as he contracted an upper respiratory tract infection and was rushed to the hospital. There were rumors that he had developed liver and kidney failure. Later in an interview, Samuel stated that he had been poisoned by one of his former friends. He came out of the hospital not quite well because as soon as he got home, he collapsed, hit his head in the fall, and ended up back in the hospital bed. As a result, Silvio lost his muscles and began to weigh about the same as a marathon runner. By the beginning of 2011, he had somehow managed to recover, and he even announced that he would take part in the Australian Grand Prix. And on April 7, 2011, the news broke that Silvio Samuel had been arrested for assaulting and beating his girlfriend. He broke into her house, severely beat her, and broke her arm, after which, returning home, her son called the 911 rescue service. According to a friend, Samuel was having a hard time. He didn't work anywhere and lost all contacts. She assumed that the beatings were caused by a fit of jealousy. In the end, Samuel was sentenced to 5 years, of which he actually served 4. After his release, he tried to return to big bodybuilding, but the train had long since left. Nevertheless, Silvio Samuel went down in history as one of the most prominent athletes who never fully revealed his enormous potential. As always, I will be grateful for your support. It helps in the development of the channel. Do not forget to click on the bell so as not to miss the new issue. Thanks for watching, Sports Guru with you. See you later.